But if you're listening to the show, John, after the fact, it could be even good evening or good afternoon or good early morning. But we are live right now. It is Garden America broadcasting from the iHeartMedia and Entertainment Studios located in beautiful San Diego, California. Brian Main, Tiger Palafox. John Begnasco is here, and we are ready to go. We've got a guest this week. Haven't had a guest in probably over a month because of the holidays, right, Tiger?
Exactly. So we have a guest this week. We're going to be talking about ornamental grasses, growing them, taking care of them, which ones to plant. And so, kind of excited about that. Kind of an interesting topic, though, going into what's going on in Los Angeles right now with all of the fires and everything.
That could be an entire show.
Well,
itself. Yeah, I know the microphones.
We need to let our listeners around, because we have people around the world and around the country listening to us, that where we are in San Diego is not a problem. Everything is in the L.A. area, and our hearts go out to those people. But for those that are concerned about us, because all week I kept getting, people in Michigan sending me notes. Are you okay? Are you okay?
Because when you watch it on the national news, it's almost as if the entire state of California is burning, and it's within L.A. County.
Yeah. Well, and also I think that the other thing that is we are accustomed to when these things happen is specifically Santa Ana winds when they create the fires. They blow from the east to the west. So as you can see, those fires went to the ocean.
Right.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
We don't normally during a normal fire, sometimes we do get smoke and we can get concerned because, it could be blowing north and south. It could be blowing east or west, whatever it is. When a Santa Ana, and even in San Diego, when those fires happen, all that smoke, all that fire danger goes towards the ocean, which we're not even getting any smoke. And normally, if there's a fire in LA, sometimes we'll have that haze or we'll smell it in the air.
You're right; it's blowing out toward the ocean.
Yeah,
and at my house, it's been going one way in the morning and one way at night.
Does it shift?
Yeah, it shifts. It's like two different directions.
But exactly.
The last 5 days, everything's just been flat.
Like Tiger mentioned, it is the winds. That's the biggest enemy of a fire, obviously, because the embers can blow miles.
Yeah. You guys know Tom Caruth?
Yeah.
Sure.
Probably one of the world's most famous rose breeders. He's got, the striped rose Neil Diamond. One of your favorite, Brian, George Burns. It's one of your favorite roses.
Love George.
Yeah.
Even Gracie.
Do you still have George Burns?
Yes, I do.
I know that one of our listeners, Jan, sent you one, right?
You wouldn't know it, though, if you walk through the pathway because everything's dormant. Everything's sleeping right now.
But anyway, he's got anyone who grows roses, I'm sure, has one of Tom Caruth's roses. And now he is the head, he's the curator at the Huntington Botanical Gardens of Roses. But unfortunately, he lost his home in the fire.
Oh.
He was able to escape only with a change of clothes, his phone, and his iPad or computer. And that was it.
Horrible.
So I wanted to let our listeners know that there is a GoFundMe page.
Okay.
So if I think on GoFundMe, if you just type
I'll find it and then I'll share.
Put a link, and I know everybody's asking for donations this time of year, but if you're a gardener, especially if you're a rose grower,
right,
Tom is he's been on our show before, and any rosarian just appreciates him devoting his entire life to growing roses and creating new roses for us. So. Anything from $5 to $5,000, I'm sure would help.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is people walk away with nothing. Whatever they had in their pocket, whatever clothes they had on, whatever they were able to grab, and talk about starting life over again.
How do you spell Tom's name? Do you know?
Tom.
Mm-hmm.
Carruth. Tom Caruth.
Wow, he's already raised almost $20,000.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's outstanding. Anyway, so that is our take on what's happening. Nothing going on here in San Diego so far. We are safe, but our hearts and our prayers go out to those people in Los Angeles. Just devastating. It's just, it's a sort of a once-in-a-lifetime apocalyptic event.
I know. Our friend Alice at Log House Plants up in Oregon has two nieces in that area. One of them, their house burned down, and I think the other one was endangered, but haven't heard any update on that.
And,
so yeah,
and it's tough because I mean, being here in Southern California, fires and earthquakes are our tornadoes and hurricanes, and the hard part about it with gardening is that a lot of times gardening gets the bad name in a fire. Like, if we would have done proper shrub abatement, if we would have done this, if we would have done that
if you
differently.
had ice plant on the hill, this wouldn't have happened.
Yeah, and there's a lot of truth to that. There's a lot of research out there about defensible space in your property and all of that. But at the same time, like I said, for Southern California, fires are our tornadoes, our hurricanes, and our floods. So it's nature also, and it's kind of hard sometimes to say that you can fight nature with anything. It's like that. I think there was that movie like Dante's Peak when they took the K rails and tried to redirect lava. And it's like anybody that lives in Hawaii knows you don't redirect lava. Like lava goes where lava wants to go.
Yeah. And here's something else. You can have all the abatement, all the ice plant, but the wind is going to carry those embers up and over whatever defense you may have. Yeah. And that could be just as close as up the canyon and landing on top of your house.
Yeah. Well, that's why if you go online, I think Monrovia did a good job of coming up with zone landscaping. And then there's just some common sense, like, don't put a tree right next to the house, right?
Sure.
And you can still, I think usually a landscape is going to help, right?
Yeah,
and,
of course.
And,
do what you can.
Unfortunately, Southern California has been getting rid of lawns, and actually lawns would be a great deterrent to the fires.
Right. So anyway, that's our take, and we hope that people that are okay and are safe. And,
yeah.
But anyway,
succulents,
thank you for
by
that.
the way, also.
Yeah, right.
Succulents will help make it through fires, and I brought in some succulents
But
today.
not just any succulents, John.
Do a little tease.
Well, I went
the
to
camera.
If you're online and you want to buy succulents, I noticed that Altman Plants has an Amazon site that sells a lot of them. But if you're in the Southern California area, in Escondido is Oasis Water Efficient Plants. And I went there the other day, and they had a great selection of new varieties, new hybrids. The aloes that are there, Tiger, I think it might be Kelly Griffin's hybrids. But anyway, I just thought they were really cool.
You also have what's called living rocks in there.
Yeah, there's living stones and living rocks, and that group of plants, Brian, is referred to as mimicry plants because they mimic pebbles and stones in the landscape. So if you could imagine putting those in a little saucer, a little a planter,
right,
with pebbles and rocks around it.
Yeah, that would be nice.
But when they bloom, and these just finished blooming, when they bloom, the bloom covers the entire plant. It's like a huge daisy, over an inch wide.
Have you ever grown these lithops from seed? You see them in seed packages every once in a while. Have you ever done that?
I think years ago I may have tried, but back then I didn't have the patience.
No, they're always just that big when you get them.
Well, that's the thing is I have tried, and I don't want to downplay, but I'm never successful with it.
Really, I've had them germinate.
Have you? Okay.
Yeah, but it's so tiny.
So whenever I see them and a grower has produced them, I'm always impressed because
absolutely,
because if you can grow something from seed, because that's how they grow these, right? Like
or offsets.
Yeah, do they do that?
Yeah, because they do sucker or offset, and you can just pull those apart.
And that's an easy way. So I don't know how they grew them, Altman's, but I think a lot of times people will grow them from seed. And I'm always impressed by that.
We've got about a minute to go. We want to tease our audience with our guest today. But John, you want to do the quote of the week, and then we'll take a break for Biz Talk Radio. Bring on our guest for this portion of the show.
Okay, Brian. The quote is from. We have a lot of quotes from garden writer Hal Borland, and he said that winter strips the broadleaf trees to their essentials. Now they stand in bare bones, all of them except the pines and the spruces and the hemlocks, and you can see what stands behind their graceful summer shapes. Nice new cartoon in the newsletter, too.
Yeah, check out that newsletter, that caricature of myself that John put together. Okay, we're going to take a break. Our guest coming up, Tiger, is?
Karen Parke with Moosa Creek Nursery.
Moosa Creek, local company here in San Diego.
Valley
Fallbrook,
Center.
Vista,
Valley Center Vista, yeah. Okay, with that in mind, this is Garden America. Happy weekend. Going to take a break for Biz Talk Radio. Brian Main, John Bagnasker, Tiger Palafox. Back after these messages, and once again, welcome to Garden America. And just like that, we are back here on Garden America. And so we continue. Hopefully everything has been taken care of. We're settling down here, concentrating on gardening, horticulture, and right now concentrating, Tiger, with Karen, our guest on today's show.
Yeah,
There you go.
Before we bring on Karen, John was mentioning his new gopher count for the week.
64.
The update.
64.
This is for the week?
No,
I was
not
gonna
for
say,
the
my
week.
gosh.
No, it's actually been over 10 months, and all except for one, the one that bit me that I got to come out
That's awesome.
with a hose.
That's the best story.
63 of them were caught with the gopher hawks. And I've had people say, the gopher hawks are kind of expensive, but if you're in the San Diego area, I get mine at Grand Jettos, and they're by far the best price
You know what?
around.
It's too bad they're not a sponsor, because what a great angle to have the gopher count each week.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously.
The gopher count brought to you by
Right.
Grand Jettos.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll work on that. In the meantime, Tiger, I'm going to toss it back to you. Let's bring on Karen.
Yeah, we have Karen Parke joining us from Moosa Creek Nursery this morning. Karen, thanks for joining us. How are you doing?
Of course. Good morning. I'm having a little hard time hearing you.
Oh, okay. We'll try to work on the audio.
Yeah.
Maybe it's on our end. But I wanted to welcome you to the show. Moosa Creek Nursery, one of the premier Southern California growers of native plants. Karen, now you've recently started working with Moosa Creek Nursery, or you've been working with Moosa Creek Nursery for a long time. There's been a transition.
Sorry. I'm having trouble hearing you. I have a good connection, but I can't hear you.
Everything is good on our end. It's the same. I don't know what that might be. Can you hear me, Karen?
I can, yes.
But not me. Yeah.
Wow,
so it's just me. How about you? Can she hear John?
I don't know.
I can hear you very clearly, whoever is talking right now.
Oh,
That's John. Okay, Tiger, go ahead.
Yeah. Karen, can you hear me now?
A little bit, yes.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll keep you pumped up there.
Yeah.
Tiger, what about if you write down what you want to ask her and then pass it over to me, and I'll just pass on the question.
We can do it.
So sorry for the technical issue, Karen, but Moosa Creek Nursery. Tell us about Moosa Creek. Tell us about your involvement there with the nursery.
Sure. Moosa Creek's been a native plant nursery for 20 years as of 2024. Sue and Hank started the nursery because they built a house and they couldn't find native plants to put back into their landscape. And Hank was an opportunist and an entrepreneur, and he thought that there was a need for that in the industry. So he started to grow a few native plants, went back to his day job, left Sue answering the phone, and kind of, I could just say that was the beginning and the end of Hank's involvement, and Sue took over, and over about 10, 15 years, they grew the nursery, and the demand for native plants has increased, and they've done a great job for providing them and created a marketing and retail, what's the word I'm looking for, presence, so that people could buy plants and put them in their backyards.
Yeah.
And it's just taken off and been a very vital part of San Diego's native plants since then.
Yeah, definitely. And your involvement there?
Yeah, so I started 8 years ago. I was between corporate, stressful jobs and decided I wasn't going to do that anymore. And I literally just went to the farmer's market and to all of my landscape friends and said, hey, I need a stressless job that can keep me working with plants and maybe do something different. And someone said that Sue was hiring, and that's the day I found out about native plants, and my life really changed completely.
And do you think that growing plants is less stressful?
Oh, absolutely, especially compared to my personal last job. But yes, plant people in particular are just very nice, forgiving. They're just amazing people to work with. It's just a different stress level.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's a different stress because you're working with plants, you're working with plant people. That's an enjoyable experience. Sometimes plants stress me out though, in the sense of like, why won't you grow, or what?
Yeah, why did you die, or why does somebody want something else, or yes.
But see,
always
that's where the other stress comes in. Our business is to keep things alive.
Yeah,
we're responsible every day to keep you alive. Now, whether you cooperate or not, that's another story.
Yeah. Mother Nature says otherwise.
Yep.
Hey, so we wanted to bring you on the program this morning to talk a little bit about one of a particular type of plant, and that's the ornamental grasses. And there's a lot of native ornamental grasses. There's a lot of non-native ornamental grasses. But grasses add an element to the landscape that just most other, I mean, they're in their own category, right? Because we can talk shrubs, we can talk trees, perennials, and annuals. But grasses are their own category because there's nothing else like them. And so they're an important part because I kind of feel also if you see a landscape without a grass in it, it just looks a little bit off. I think that, all landscapes kind of require that. So tell us, what is a ornamental grass?
An ornamental grass can be a couple of things. It could definitely be native, and it could give all of the benefits that a native grass gives, but additionally, it has usually just appeal for a person, aesthetic appeal. It has some kind of plume or some kind of decorative look to it, and it just is usually more aesthetic than beneficial in other ways. But we have native grasses that are both, and we have invasive grasses, of course, non-natives that are aesthetically pleasing that we sometimes put in our landscapes.
Yeah, I think that aside from, and John, I mean, your early years in Southern California, nurseryman, was pampas grass around? Like, did you sell that in the nursery?
Right. It was probably one of the most common grasses.
Was it?
Yeah.
If not the most common.
Was it really?
Yeah.
And that was just horrible, right? Like, just reseeds, just goes everywhere.
That's the name.
Yeah. Pampas?
Pampas. Yeah, absolutely.
But today, I think that one of those grasses would be the stipa, the Mexican feather grass. And I mean, it just reseeds, it goes everywhere. And when I was young in the nursery industry, no nursery didn't have it. And now I don't see it anymore. Do you see it much around, Karen? I mean, besides it just repopulating everyone in everyone's yard?
No, unfortunately, I've been seeing it on a few bids still here and there, but overall, no. It's pretty much. I think we're finally learning and finally getting it down that we cannot be putting that out there.
But at the same time, there are stipas that do not do that, right? So that's the hard thing. Is like there's in the same family of grasses, there's different ones, and they get all grouped together because there's a lot of native stipa, right? Or there's
matter of fact, Stipa pulchra, which is the purple 3-on, is actually not only an amazing grass, but it's our state grass.
Oh, really?
So, we have a state grass.
I did not know
that either.
It's one of our more common grasses in San Diego County. It's really good looking, but yes, you're right, it's a stipa. And so sometimes people could mentally lump them together and just think generally negative thoughts. But it's a great grass, and it's our state grass.
I think the state grass was just made legal a few years ago, wasn't it?
Oh, goodness. Hey, Karen, we do have to take a break. When we get back, we're going to continue chatting with Karen Parke from Moosa Creek Nursery, and we're going to be talking about ornamental grasses.
Yep, and those on Facebook Live, questions, comments there on the comment thread right there. Feel free. Whatever's on your mind. We're going to take a break for Biz Talk Radio. John Begnasco, I'm Brian Main. Tiger Palafox, back with Karen after these messages on Biz Talk Radio. All righty, Garden America back after the break. Hope you had a good break here. Facebook Live, Biz Talk Radio. Whatever's on your mind in accordance with what's happening now with Karen, talking grasses here on our Facebook page and Biz Talk Radio. Back to you, Tiger.
Yeah, we're talking again with Karen Parke with Moosa Creek Nursery. And before the break, we were just talking about what an ornamental grass is. And, she was describing on how to use them in a landscape as far as, for their beautiful plumes or the textures of the foliage. And, we mentioned a couple that you maybe should avoid, Mexican feathergrass, pampas grass. Are there any other ones? I know that you're focused mostly in California, Karen. Are there any other grasses that you might want to mention to avoid?
The one that's not planted that we see in the wild quite a bit is called arundo.
Oh,
it's the giant reed grass. Mm-hmm. It looks like a grass out of your lawn, but it's about 10 to 15 feet tall. Mm-hmm. This is a horrible grass. Typically not in homes, but it's more in the wild. It displaces other native plants.
Yeah,
and then there's a few pennisetums. Mm-hmm. It's a type of grass that seeds terribly. I have a name written down here. Let me look at it.
Yeah, the arundo, though, I mean, that's in a lot of our waterways or a lot of our flow areas where it just spreads like crazy, and then
looks a little like bamboo.
Yeah, and like she said, it's like the grass. It's like a big piece of St. Augustine grass, just 10 feet tall. Reminds you of being in that movie, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
It's a premium plant in the Midwest.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the variegated form, which is not quite as invasive, but because they have freezes and things.
Well, I was going to say it also dies every year.
Keep it in control.
Yeah.
Pennisetum is another grass that is bad for San Diego that reseeds terribly. Mm-hmm. Fountain grass, I don't know if I'm going to say it right. Pennisetum cetaceum, something like that.
Oh, cetaceum.
Okay.
That one. That one seeds terribly and displaces our other grasses. People really like it. The fountain grass has a really pretty seed head to it, so it's purchased a lot, but it also needs to be eradicated from our stores and not sold.
Yeah.
Does the purple one reseed, Tiger?
No, not as much.
No, not the molly. That one seems to be okay so far.
Yeah. Yeah, and so, that is something that we should mention, Karen, is that, a lot of the beauty of the grasses is that plume, right? That bloom that it does have off of it. But that is also a lot of the mess and also a lot of the problem. If you do allow it to bloom and it does reseed, it'll get into every nook and cranny of your yard. But also, even the ones that maybe don't reseed real well, they can create a bit of a mess. So, when we're talking about care of the grasses, do you have any tips for people that have them in their landscape about maybe some of the different care techniques on keeping them looking good?
I think it kind of depends on the person in the yard. I like to leave my grasses nice and tall, and I don't cut them back until the early spring. What I'm after is getting all the insects and all of the birds their food and their nesting material for the fall and through winter. Other people have grasses that are supposed to be ornamental and they're close to the house, and so maybe they want to cut them back so that the green grows back up through and looks nice in the springtime. So some people cut them back in the fall, and some people leave them.
So you're saying a good way to be a good steward of nature is to leave them through into the winter, because there's critters that use it for either nesting or they live in them, and you don't want to cut them back because there's a lot of benefits to the dry grass or the plumes or anything like that, right?
Yes, the grasses host insects, and that's so important during the winter time for our birds and even small mammals that rely on insects when it's dry and there's not a whole lot of other things for them to have. And then, yes, the birds use the grasses for also insects that they eat, but habitat to use as their nesting material.
Hey, John, we got a couple of questions here. I think John's got a question.
Yeah, John in Newport Beach says that he has an ornamental grass that somebody told him was cowboy grass.
Cowboy? Or is that like the way you put in your mouth?
Yeah, and he wants to know
Yeehaw,
the scientific name and if it's invasive, but I'm really not sure what that is. Karen, do you know?
I don't.
I mean, I'm assuming it's like a pennisetum, right? That's what I see, like what a
Right,
cowboy would
yeah,
put in their mouth,
mouth.
and like just hang out the side.
See if something comes up.
I Googled it, and I only see cologne. So I
You see cologne. There's a name of a cologne called cowboy grass.
Wow.
Yeah. How about that?
I love it.
But now again, somebody told him it
Yeah.
was called cowboy grass, so it's not as
Sure.
if this is scientific or
Right. Well, that's why he wanted to know
Sure.
the scientific
if,
name.
if we know what it is.
And if we knew what it was, we would know what grass it was.
We don't know what it is, but we think it is invasive.
Well, maybe
It's not native. It must be.
Right? Well, yeah.
And then Veronica Tiger says that in Spring Valley, she says she's got Mexican feather grass that shows up in her yard, and
Oh gosh.
she says she didn't know anything about it, so she put it in a pot, and she said, "Yep, it travels."
Yeah.
She said she just digs it up and puts it back in the same pot, and she
Oh,
says
goodness.
she cutting the seed heads every now and then helps a little bit.
Yeah, control it.
Yeah.
Well, that ought to keep her busy for a lifetime.
I was going to say, yeah, right?
That's like you know, Karen. Back in the day, alyssum reseeded. That little white flowering or purple flowering plant would reseed. A lot of the varieties of alyssum don't reseed as much as they used to.
Right.
Today, but back in the day, that was a plant that when you planted alyssum, you had it pop up in every little nook and cranny of your landscape as it just grew, and kind of that's stipa right there, is it'll just get into every nook and cranny. So maintenance. You're saying kind of if you can leave the grasses through the winter for the critters, if you want to be a good steward of some of the nature. The way I kind of see grasses too is it's kind of like those like kelp beds in the ocean, where it just gives that opportunity for for critters to like live and eat and be safe, right? Like there's a lot of really a good place to hang out because there's so much in them.
Absolutely.
So, on the watering, do you continue watering these all the way through the winter too, or is there a time of year where you kind of start to begin to cut back because they don't always grow all year round?
They don't. This time of year, they're looking pretty brown, and they go winter dormant, and they don't grow too much. It's just a personal preference. Also, too, and I don't want to use the word fire today. I really don't want to. But if you don't want to have too many grasses super close to the house either, and if that was the case, then maybe you would trim them back pretty hard in fall and not wait.
Yeah.
In our typical housing areas where you've got just your standard backyards or a little piece of property, I think grasses are a must-have. And if you feel the need to cut them back in the fall, that's okay. But just in my moral compass and my yard in particular, I just love grasses throughout the fall, and I just know that they're going to be needed for our wildlife.
Will they just add a softness to the landscape that you can't achieve any other way, right? I mean,
no, especially like we're talking about, it's so dry, and it is just all of the native plants kind of shrink up and do their stress thing. So to have the grass and have the texture, I can't agree more. It's just part of the palette, part of the aesthetic palette.
All right, and Karen, we have about a minute left of this spot, but I did want to lead into what I wanted to chat a little bit more about into the next spot. Is there's also a lot of ornamental grasses or grasses that, this lawn alternative, or meadow style grasses where people have filled areas of their landscape with grasses that they just don't mow, or they do mow, but just not regularly, like a fescue lawn or anything like that. And again, if you're looking for like a low water lawn, there's a lot of options there. We have about a minute, so I will cut you off, but, are there some varieties out there that you recommend for that?
Yeah, I think a couple of the nurseries recommend different things. At Moosa, generally, we say it's called Carex progressilis. It's our clustered field sedge. It takes to mowing. It does clump, but they're really small and kind of flat, so if you plant them together, they can be mowed. Nan Sternum, our local gardening professional at her house, she has an amazing Carex lawn. If you're ever able to see it on a tour, I believe Native West does suggest a fescue. So yeah, there's several ideas. I mean, you wouldn't get out your standard lawnmower and mow them and then maybe play games on it, but it's super walkable and good for pets.
All right, we are going to take a break. When we get back, we'll continue chatting with Karen Parke.
And those on Facebook Live, keep those questions, comments coming. We are talking grasses here with Karen this morning, and perhaps anything else you want to discuss, so we will hit that as well. Garden America, Brian Main, John Bagnasco, Tiger Palafox. It is break time. Going to pay some bills. Thank you to our major sponsor, Fertilome. This break is for you on Biz Talk Radio. All right, we are back from the break. Those that are tuned in on Biz Talk Radio, this is the final segment of Hour 1. News coming up top of the hour. We come back at around 6 minutes after. Hopefully, you'll pick up the second hour as well, Tiger, as we continue with Karen.
Yeah, so we're talking with Karen from Moosa Creek Nursery, and before the break, we were talking about some of the grasses you might use as a lawn alternative. And Karen, when it comes to those kinds of grasses, usually they're kind of spreading style, right?
Yeah.
So they'll reproduce mostly by like root systems, or do they reseed?
The one that we suggest is usually by a little bit of both, but mostly by seed.
Okay. And if you were going to plant a grass area like that, overhead watering, drip system, what do you?
$1 million question.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of overhead watering. I know the water district isn't a big fan because there's some evaporation, but that's what the native plants are used to.
Yeah.
I know many gardeners that are successful with drip. I just my call out with drip is that sometimes it gets soggy around the crown of plants, but for a grass it might be okay to have just a lower water and not overhead. But generally with grasses, especially a lawn, I would think overhead would be better. And
also don't grasses specifically, like, so for instance, let's say you did have a native garden, in a low-lying area of your garden, they suck up that water a little bit better, so you maybe don't have such a boggy area, where maybe if you planted sages or ceanothus or something like that, they might actually rot out. Would that help kind of absorb some of the water?
Yes, native grasses are super good for erosion control, stabilization, saving water, cleaning water, and yes, they would do just fine with seasonal or flooding like that or extra water. It depends on the grass. Some of them really like to be dry.
Oh.
But these grasses that we're talking about for lawns would definitely be good for some of those lower lying areas.
And I think that this is another thing, because I think people group grasses all together as one, and when they talk about grasses, they think of a lawn, and they always think of a heavy feeder, nitrogen-rich fertilizer, and
sure.
All that. Now, when we're talking ornamental grasses, is it the same? Is it the same case? Are they kind of a nitrogen-rich fertilizer plant, or are they different?
Not as much, but yes, they're still super beneficial for the soil, mostly for filtration and just water quality.
Yeah, but do they require the fertilizer like a lawn would?
No.
Okay.
Would never give any kind of native plants fertilizer unless they're dying or last hope.
Trying to salvage it there.
Yeah.
And grouping all the kind of natives together, and with the grasses, we usually talk about planting in the fall, to kind of get them well established and kind of growing into the spring, and so that way they're established by the summer. Is that kind of a similar schedule for the grasses as well, or is there a different timeline for them?
No, I think grasses are more, you can do those more throughout the year. When we're concerned about getting things established before the heat, that's usually shrubs or tender plants that we just want to get started right away. But I think grasses you could plant throughout the year. They're a bit dormant this time of year, and they might not take off right away until the spring. But I think grasses are something you could plant just about any time of year.
And the other neat thing about, I think, when it comes to planting, grasses in a landscape, is that a lot of the energy, a lot of the plant is within the root system, right? So even if you planted it and it struggled, like if you plant a sage and it struggles or dries up, you're a really good chance you lost that sage. But with the grass, you plant it struggles, there's a chance it can come back, right?
Absolutely, especially if you plant it this time of year. It's not going to do much because the grasses are dormant. It's just going to kind of sleep for a little bit, and then ideally in the spring, summer, it starts to put on those roots, which you still won't see, and then maybe you don't see any growth until the end of summer or maybe even into the next season.
Okay. On when it comes to picking out some of the varieties, are there any that you kind of get excited about? You know, when are there any new ones out there that you want to mention to our listeners?
My two favorite grasses are the standard deer grass, the Muhlenbergia erosions that everybody uses and loves. I think it's a great size. It stays neat in size. It's not invasive. It grows anywhere. It grows all around our county. And it's a bigger grass, so it takes up a nice amount of space. The other one that I really like is the purple threon, which is the Aristida purpurea. And it's just much more ornamental when those seed heads and those spikelets come in the springtime, and then the summertime they're red. They're like a purple color, and they're really pretty in the breeze and in the yard.
And on the deer grass, do you know if that got its name because deer eat it?
I'm sure they do.
Yeah. So if you want to attract some deer into the landscape,
bring some deer grass.
Yeah, exactly. My mother-in-law lives up near Auburn, California, which is in between Sacramento and Truckee, and she has deer coming into her yard every day. She lives in an area and there's just constant deer, and it's funny. She actually has a synthetic lawn in her front yard, and one day sent me this picture of this giant buck deer just sitting on the front lawn, just lounging out there, just right there. And I was like, holy cow, that's so amazing. But
does that make it a type of deer grass then?
Yeah, exactly. They've got to be able to enjoy it.
Now, if any cowboys show up and sit on your grass, I guess we're talking cowboy grass.
Right. Yeah, we still gotta figure that one out.
Circle back on that one.
Right.
Hey, so we are going to take a break in about what do we have, Brian? About another minute?
A minute and a half.
Minute and a half? Okay. Really neat thing that Moosa Creek Nursery does is you guys post your availability online for people to see, right?
We do.
And so people can order from your website and actually get it shipped to a local garden center where they can pick it up?
Yeah, so right now Moosa Creek supports about 30 retail stores between San Diego, Los Angeles, Riverside, and Orange County. We make deliveries weekly. And if you go onto our website, you can order to have those plants delivered to your favorite Mission Hills nursery or wherever, whatever garden center is closest to you. And we stock plants at these nurseries also. So if they don't have what you're looking for in stock, we can put it on the truck and bring it down the following week.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, it gives the nurseries an option to have way more inventory than what they maybe have space for, and it allows the customer to be able to peruse a little bit more than maybe what they would normally see. Hey, Karen.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say we don't have a whole lot of native plant nurseries in Southern California, so sometimes it's hard to find, and I think it's been a nice feature.
Yeah, definitely. Hey, thank you very much for joining us this weekend and taking your time and talking a little bit about natives and grasses with us. And again, moosacreeknursery.com is the website?
Yes.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Karen. Have a good rest of the weekend.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, thanks, Karen. And again, we're going to take a quick break. And news coming up, Biz Talk Radio. We come back officially 6 minutes after. Facebook Live a bit quicker. This is Garden America. Stay with us. All righty, Garden America is back in action. Hot mics and everything that goes along with that. If you're tuned in on Biz Talk Radio, we're kicking off hour 2. Facebook Live, it's just one entire audio band. We just don't quit.
I bet on Facebook Live right now with Brian's camera, if you're looking at it, you see his screen. It looks like he's tracking satellite waves or something from a SpaceX launch on his computer monitor.
And I'm tracking all the people that are tuned in on or watching on Facebook Live. These are analytics as well.
Well, no, I'm looking at the computer screen. Look at how you have your audio just fill up the whole screen right there.
Well, that's an adjustment. We can make it smaller next week.
Yeah.
But as long as
normally it is
clear,
smaller, but it looks like we're yelling at each other.
We could. But, you can see that in that camera shot that I'm in. And also, John is I've never seen John so up and around and alive and ready to go.
Up and around
and alive and ready to go.
I don't feel that way, I'm really tired today.
That's okay, though. You know what? Just showing up is contributing.
Yeah, I've had to get up early the last few days. By the way, if anyone, yesterday I did a show on Wisconsin Public Radio on I'm trying to think, the Larry Mueller show.
Yeah, how can we find that?
Larry Mueller has a website for his show for Wisconsin Public
Radio. And it's Larry,
Radio.
how do you spell his last name?
It's Meiller. Larry Mueller.
Larry Mueller. All right, so you can hear John.
So anyway, it's archived.
What'd you guys talk about?
We talked about gardening.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
Now that surprises me, John.
Yeah, the show was supposed to be about cactus and succulents, and we did talk about that a little, but I had to mention roses and.
Well, just like this show, we have a topic, and then we start to drift, and then people become enamored, I should say, with where we've drifted to, and they ask questions.
I've started planting for spring already. I'm putting roses in the ground, and I mentioned I went to Oasis Water Efficient Plants and picked up some of these new succulents and hybrids. And there's that one. Most of our listeners know what epiphyllum are, the orchid cactus.
Right.
And this one just intrigued me because it's twisted. If I was going to name that variety, Brian, I might call it Twisted Sister.
I was thinking the same thing when you said that. Our minds work well together.
I could tell you were.
I let you say that. Twisted Sister.
But I'm sure it's going to bloom. I don't know what the bloom will look like, but the leaves just intrigued me. One thing about epiphyllum I noticed the last 2 years is snails love them.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Now so far this year, it's been dry and snails are not as much of a problem.
Yeah, don't see many snails.
Do you have them like in the ground though? Like meaning normally you see them you see them in a pot or in a basket.
Yes, these were in a pot setting on a stump.
Oh, okay.
And the snails just crawl up the side of the stump.
Yeah, right up there.
Yeah, there's just.
Okay. So I was going to say that
the last 2 years I've killed, which is a pretty strong word, but thousands and thousands of snails. It's just unbelievable.
I haven't seen many snails in the last couple of years.
Oh, really?
And is that
even now? I can bring you some next week.
Let me ask you in a weird way: is that a good or bad sign?
Well,
if you have snails.
So here's the challenge for you.
It wasn't
Brian.
really a weird way. It was kind of a normal way to ask a question.
Yeah, but I'm thinking, how we say sometimes a quasi pest might be good for whatever weird reason. What about snails?
Well, but here's the hard thing for you. John and I can say, well, if we haven't seen a snail, that could be a weird thing because we know our yards. For you, you have a landscape company that's managing your property, and they could be dropping snail bait, and you might not know it. So, which a lot of companies will do, and so they've controlled it. But you now like, wow, I don't see any snails before. Where the company before, or maybe there's something that changed that they never used snail bait, and then you saw more snails. So it's kind of hard for you to know where John knows if he drops Sluggo, and if he sees snails after he drops Sluggo, he's like, it didn't work. But if he hasn't put anything down, because did you ever get your decollete snails?
No.
They've been really hard to get.
I know.
Like, yeah.
You said they weren't available last
right.
year.
What you just said makes a lot of sense. But however, as I've observed this current landscape company, it's the same one for several years. I just see them as a company that comes out, trims, sweeps, blows, and gets out of there. I don't see a lot of intricate taking care of a snail problem. It would almost be like we would have to call and complain about snails or some other pest and around the landscaping. Call the HOA office. Okay, we'll make sure next time they're out there to take care of that.
Yeah.
So
you live in a condo too, so it's an area that's not wild.
Right.
So once the snails are under control, it's easier. Might be in the CC and ours too that
no snails are allowed.
Snails are allowed. Yeah.
Right. Oh, no, you bring up a good point. Snails are...
But, Tiger mentioned on the decollete snails, last year they just weren't available anywhere.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they'll be available this year.
Yeah, I can't remember what the issue was. I think it's where they were harvested from. Because, the ladybugs, people have to know that those are harvested out of areas, that you buy at the store. They get permits and they go into different woodland areas where they actually harvest all those ladybugs from. So I think the decollete snails are kind of a similar thing. But you brought in a bunch of other little guys over here, succulents wise too, John.
There's like 4 aloes.
Yeah,
this
little grouping here.
Yeah, and if you look at those, you can see the varietal names on the size, but there's something different to all of them. Yeah, that one I noticed had just a little tiny root.
Yeah,
so I'll have to watch when
firecracker, aloe firecracker.
Yeah, and they're
super
small,
bright colors.
They're smaller aloes and blooming. You can see one has got a bloom coming. That one I really liked.
Snowdrift. Now, the challenge with some of these aloes, though, is that you buy them at the garden center and they look like this. Mm-hmm. And they don't put it like what is their mature size? Well, because I've seen aloes that get massive.
Right, and these are mostly smaller aloes. Aloes grow all the way up to tree size, right? On some of the tree aloes, which are really cool, and they don't take that long to get tree size. But these are smaller aloes. They're great for pots, little accents in the landscape.
What's the story in the living rocks? I'm fascinated.
The lithop goes back to it, huh?
I think that's just I've never heard of that.
Well, there's 2 there. Lithops are usually called living stones, right, Tiger? Yep. And then the other living rock is a different one. But lithops, a lot of people plant those in really well-drained gravelly soil and then put pebbles around them. And
looks like a set of lungs.
It does.
Right.
Well, each lithops, when it comes up, is a just one single leaf. Each of those is a leaf. And then the plant splits right in the center, and a flower comes up that's the size of a daisy.
Wow.
That is really cool.
This is an agave white rhino.
Yeah, and that one is a white form of the agave Victoria reginae, which is a nice agave to begin with. But this one with the white in it is really, really neat.
You know what I've always loved about agaves too is the markings on the leaves from when it comes out. So, for instance, like some of the times you'll see them with the thorns on the edge, and you'll see on the leaf it's imprinted.
Oh, yeah,
the thorn markings, and like you can see on this one, you can see the markings of where the leaf has come out, and they lose it as they mature, but it makes it have a really neat fingerprint, so to speak, on the actual leaf as they kind of come out.
I like white variegation in succulents, and that one Echeveria there.
Oh yeah,
I think is it Echeveria compacta variegata.
That was well said.
I'm just fascinated by those colors, and I've done really good in my landscape putting Echeverias. I know they supposedly like partial shade in the hot inland areas, but mine are out in full sun and they're doing really well. I think the key is to make sure that they're in a well-drained soil and you're not going to overwater them.
Where do you get the least amount of sunlight this time of year? As we look, outside your patio doors there.
That's where.
This exactly.
Because that's the north side of the house. Yeah. Away from the patio where I've had the roses, sitting, waiting to be planted, that area was always full sun, but this time of year, half of that is shaded.
Okay, we got to take a break for Biz Talk Radio. We're coming right back, so do stay with us. And by the way, Carla wants us to revisit a question that she posted, I think, before the guest. Okay. And if we can scroll back for that. So, Carla, we are monitoring that. We're going to take a break. Biz Talk Radio, Garden America. Stay with us. We have returned from that break. Biz Talk Radio, thank you for tuning in. If you want to take part live in the show, just go to our Facebook page, Garden America Radio Show, every Saturday morning, 11 o'clock Eastern Time Zone, 8 a.m. here in the West Coast. And you can take part, ask questions, so on and so forth. And again, any questions, let us know once you are logged in. And you can visit our website as well. That's gardenamerica.com. So many ways to listen to the show. And early this afternoon, this show will be uploaded on our YouTube channel, Garden America Radio Show on YouTube. Subscribe and like and all those good things they ask you to do if you are YouTubing it. That's all I've got right now.
I'm trying to look for Carla's question. I can't go up more.
Yeah, I don't see it.
Way back in the beginning before the guest.
Yeah, I have Rick asked a question about if Nucio's was still standing, and then I see Carla's comment that says, see the comment below, and there is no comment below on my screen. So I don't know.
Well,
Maybe
Carla, do you
post it again, Carla.
Yeah, post it again. We're watching.
Yeah, for some reason it didn't come across. It was right when she said her screen froze, and then she said it's okay. So maybe when that happened, I did not get the post. This is the time of year to prune roses in Southern California.
I've
If
already
you're listening
pruned.
to us in a cold part of the country,
Yeah.
yes, we know you don't go out in the snow and prune roses, but
I pruned last month.
did you really?
Yeah.
It doesn't hurt.
You know
It
when
won't hurt.
they start looking a little pruny.
Oh, here we go.
They're begging to be pruned. Go ahead, Tiger.
I'll interject.
Yeah.
Carla, praying for the Nucio brothers and their camellia nursery in Altadena. Ironically, I received 3 camellias from them on Tuesday. I complained that they came on the worst day possible with the wind, not realizing what would transpire in a few short hours. I did receive a bill from them yesterday, but their website says temporarily closed, praying for the best. So,
Yeah, they're right in the fire area, right?
yeah. So we hope for the best
Yeah,
for Nucios as well.
Absolutely.
We were talking earlier about Tom Caruth's house burning down, and Tom, I believe, lives in Altadena, and that's where Nucio's also is, right?
Yeah. Oh man, that's a bummer. It's always that's the thing about nurseries too, is a lot of times they're, and Nucio's, I mean, this is not relevant to the one we're talking about now, but a lot of times they're on the outskirts of towns. That's where always nurseries are, is
Right.
out in the most fire danger parts of town. And they're always the ones that kind of usually get affected by these problems because they're in rural areas.
It's because the land's too valuable to grow
Right.
things in
It's
in
the truth.
populated areas.
It's very rare that you have a city nursery, unless it's been absorbed and
right.
kept in the family for years and generations and generations. That was the
Even garden centers like Mission Hills.
yeah
Nursery,
yeah
It's
exactly
been there for 100 years.
yeah
1910, is that right?
that's right
This is your 125th anniversary.
yeah it is
The big 125.
big 125. What do you
would say
get someone for their 125th
Just
anniversary?
quick math, though, isn't that 115?
15.
Did I say, was it?
Yeah,
was it-
he's
I'm
thinking
usually-
2025.
Yeah, I'm
but-
usually pretty good at. Well, if you had opened it up in 1900,
Yeah, but you said
Why didn't-
1910.
It's
I know I was doing quick math. Thank you for catching me because I'm usually pretty good at that. But 125. Who cares? Who knows?
yeah.
Celebrate
the difference between
125.
115 and 125. I mean, at
Because
that point in
115 is
time,
not a big deal.
yeah.
Tiger was just a kid when that nursery opened up.
Yeah. So, are you the third owner?
Yeah, third. Kate Sessions and Tonicelli's. And then us.
That's not bad for 115 years. 3 owners.
Yeah. You were little when your dad bought the nursery.
Yeah, I
though,
was
weren't
in
you?
kindergarten.
Yeah.
Right around kindergarten. Exactly.
A little snot running around.
Exactly. Terrorizing the place.
I have a feeling that you were a lot like Isaac.
Oh, I'm sure. Just
I saw some
Tiger's
picture.
son.
What was it in the newsletter of you holding a plant when you were? Where did I see that picture of you?
of me and my dad.
Yeah, something like that at the
Yeah.
nursery, and you were holding some plant. And you look almost like, why am I here with this plant? Because your dad told you. Because your dad
Was this
told you to
last
stand
week?
there.
Was this last week?
Anyway, so I guess we're caught up on the questions, comments.
Yes.
Those on Facebook Live, keep them coming. We've got kind of open phones right now with whatever you want to talk about.
I was in a garden center. Actually, it was Home Depot. I was in Home Depot last week, and the thought, looking at their roses that are coming in, there used to be bare root rose season in Southern California. Now they're all potted, I think, right?
Yeah.
Do you still get bare root roses?
We do not.
Yeah.
I think there's a Hunters in like Spring Valley area. I think still gets bare root. I think Niffings maybe does, but
Yeah, I know Niffings used to.
yeah.
But anyway, I remember, the roses coming in bare root, and they were like $6.99 for non-patents
Yeah.
and $9.99 or $12.99 for the new ones. And I'm looking $34.99.
Yeah.
$35 for it's just I just can't get accustomed to new pricing, I guess.
Well, I think I mean it's just not just the new pricing, but it's the new way of roses, in the sense of, number one, I mean, a lot of rose producers have gone out of business, so you know there's fewer companies doing it. But number two, they used to just plant them up in fields and then harvest them like that, and that whole process is just way more costly than it used to be. In the sense of it's easier for us to can and grow and do it that way than it is to plant them in a field and grow it out. That's why the stone fruits we talked about, with the apricots and the apples and those, they field grow those and then they dig them up and harvest them. And that whole process is more expensive nowadays than it used to be, compared to a ornamental nursery grower who instantly drops it in a can, grows it out. That's a much easier process than the field grown now. Where it used to be flipped. It used to be harder to ornamentally grow plants.
It's a good time of year to join your local rose society and learn about pruning roses, because everybody's giving seminars on pruning roses. I know the San Diego Rose Society has one coming up this week, I think, either this week or next week, where they're going to be demonstrating pruning. But most rose societies are happy to have you show up, and I think you're usually invited to go in free, for a few meetings before you join. But even if you want to join, they're usually like $20 a year to join, and it does support the rose societies.
And and they usually will support educational aspects of growing roses, or different scholarships for people trying to get into horticulture, or other programs, that support, the saving roses. I mean, a lot of times, they'll give money back to like places like Balboa Park or the Queen Gardens, where it promotes the whole horticultural industry.
We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to answer Carla's next question here on Garden America, Facebook Live, Biz Talk Radio. And again, thank you to Fertile Loam, keeping us on the air each and every year. Back after these messages, and thank you for tuning in, whether it be Facebook Live or Biz Talk Radio. All right, we are back. We've got two more segments. This is the longer of the two segments coming up, so still plenty of time to get engaged and let us know what's on your mind. Did you want to read it, John, since it was directed to you? Do you have the question?
Carla says that the article that was in the newsletter this week mentioned picking up fallen leaves in the garden to prevent pests, and she says she thought leaves were good for mulch. Could you please clarify? Yeah, it depends on what kind of leaves, right, Tiger? For instance, if you have magnolias, and magnolias are dropping leaves, they're a thicker, heavier leaf, and it's easy for sow bugs, earwigs, snail
slugs
to get in there.
Yeah, to hide under those leaves. So those you would rake up.
And they'll kill plants that are under it, because, like you're saying, it's a big, thick.
And you don't see
if you
it.
leave it there,
you don't see 'em,
if you leave it there for 3 months, there's no light getting into the lower grass or plant.
Yeah, and it provides perfect conditions for some diseases to start. But if they're smaller deciduous leaves, like Chinese elm or things like that are going to fall and filter down, those are fine. And it depends on the part of the country too. If you have a thick leaf layer, say covering a lawn, and then you get snow on top of that, so you got
good
snow plus the leaves, then you can have diseases forming there and holding over through until the winter. So that's why they rake the leaves in areas where they get a thick mulch cover.
And also, be aware of the plant that the leaves fell from, in the sense of, a lot of times they'll talk about roses and removing that foliage, especially if it's been riddled with mildew and rust and stuff like that, because that could perpetuate the problem if you don't kind of clean up those leaves. And also, if you throw those leaves in a mulch pile, there's a really good chance that you are not a professional mulcher, and meaning you're not bringing that mulch pile temperature up to
120 degrees.
exactly where it kills all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And you go and put that mulch back out into your garden, you could then have those volunteer plants shoot up, or those diseases and fungal issues come back. So you got to be careful with that. John, are you a good mulcher?
I have a lot of mulch. And I get mulch. My son is in the tree trimming business, and so they run the branches and things through a chipper, and I end up, putting that everywhere. It helps suppress weeds.
Yeah.
For one thing.
True, yeah.
But, yeah, right now I have a hillside that I'm trying to get completely mulched, and an area where Tiger's going to be doing some work. So I'm trying to clean that up a little bit. looking
Is
to
he
put
aware
in
of the
some...
work he's going to be doing?
Oh, yeah.
He's aware of the work that he was going to be doing.
Yeah.
Now, it's pretty much the same thing. The beds in the back of my house are going to be some formal rose beds and maybe a bed or two for vegetables. And that part's going to stay the same, but it's just like where we're going to put the irrigation, because I've started planting roses down where the trellises are below, and I want Tiger's opinion on where to put some rose beds, whether I should put a bed there or just keep it a walkway. But I do need to get irrigation for when I'm not there, where everything can be watered.
Now, and then, with the whole mulch thing, I mean, it's really interesting. I'm really intrigued to see John's landscape evolve over the years. I mean, number one, it's going to be, beautiful, just the way he has everything all lined up and, laid out, and the different plant selection. But number two is, his house was built and they had to scrape. So the soil that he's working with was not very good at all.
Right, yeah.
But because of the luxury of having, a son in the tree business and having all those mulch drops, he's been able to add that element of organic material to areas real quick where most people might not be able to do that.
Right.
And it's making a huge impact on the overall landscape and the health of the soil. And, it's really neat because, coming from the house, how long did you live in that other house in Fallbrook?
30 years.
Where, you worked that landscape for 30 years and you had mulch and stuff. And when you probably went out to dig a hole, you could dig a hole.
Right.
Where now you have to dynamite blast a hole.
What do you have, granite? Are you?
Well, the hill right behind the house,
Yeah.
every rose on that hill was planted with the jackhammer.
Yeah.
And that was starting just 2 years ago, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And now I can go out there with a shovel
Yeah.
and plant something.
And it's just because of that mulch and that element of organic material. And
I was wondering, do you think weeds had a lot to do with that too?
I think so, because they
of-
break up soil.
Right.
And,
Right.
they put their roots through there. And
Yeah.
They grow up through sidewalks.
Yeah, and even and like what John I think is saying, like the root growing into a rock or hard soil is breaking it up.
Right.
So yeah, any plant material will do that.
I've had a good weed cover there for a couple of years.
We call that a cover crop.
A cover crop,
a cover crop, John.
A native cover crop.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes invasive.
Yeah,
cover
I was going to
crop,
say I don't
too.
know if it's native.
Yeah, may not be.
But
One thing I have noticed since we've had virtually no rain in Southern
Oh, wow.
California.
Yeah,
right.
when is it going to happen?
I mean,
Any on the horizon?
no, I looked 2 weeks
the
out,
horizon's
still nothing.
clear. The
Yeah.
sun is coming up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
but
that's what LA needs, a huge rain.
But because of that, I've noticed almost no weeds
Yes.
compared to past years.
Yes.
Last 2 years?
Yeah, last year at
weeds
this
everywhere.
time, the grasses would have been at least knee high by
Yeah.
now,
Yeah.
if not getting close to waist high. And right now, everything's still brown.
And isn't it a weird thing too? I've talked about this a number of times where I have that flowering, I think, pear in my front yard or something like that. It still has leaves on it.
They haven't all dropped.
We're not getting that dorm because even forget about the rain. We don't have cold like we normally do either.
You know, when I came to work today, the temperature was 37. So you can have some of my cold if you want to.
Yeah, but it warms up the further south you get. It's not
Yeah.
37 here.
Yeah. Well, he's
So the
closer to the
the
coast.
further west.
Of course.
Yeah. Because we just haven't had that. Because normally, like you say, we'll have a rain, and then it clears up, and that gets really cold, and we just haven't had that. So it's all the plants are. I think I've talked about this before, where I've just got customers and they're just frustrated because the plants don't look good. And I was like, if it was raining and cold, I probably wouldn't even be having this talk with you, because you realize why the plants don't look good. But because it's sunny and warm, and you're frustrated that your rose is not blooming or it's got mildew on foliage. And
I have roses that have not in the ground that have not gone dormant at all.
Jeez.
I mean, they're rich dark green leaves, and
mine don't look that good, but I think I've got a green planet or two. That's just kind of. I'm like, what do you want to? What are you waiting to do? What do you? We can work this out. What do you want? Me cut you? You want me to trim you? What do you want?
It's like you used to tell your kids, you just want to shout at them, "Hey, go to bed."
Yeah, exactly.
But the bigger part of this too, and it is happening. We a few years back we talked about this, is the all the fruit tree growers in the Central Valley. This is really going to affect them because their production won't be as great. They didn't, we talk about how fruit trees require those chill hours, and they're getting chill, but not what they normally would get. And then, if plants don't get enough chill for fruit trees, sometimes your production will go down the following year.
Was this supposed to be another heavy rainy season or not?
What is a La Nina? That's what they were saying. La Nina, is it dry?
La Nina's dry.
And El
For
Nino's
Southern
wet.
California. Northern California is still having a heavy rain season.
Yeah.
They've had, 2 atmospheric rivers right now?
Right. And it's kind of come down all the way just right north of San Francisco, right?
Yeah.
That's like the farthest south it's kind of come, is like the San Francisco, San Jose area. Everything south of that has been dry.
Nothing.
Yeah. But yeah, La Nina I think is dry and El Nino is wet for us. So, yeah, that's what we're having.
Well, we need some rain. We need some rain, definitely.
Never hurts.
I wonder if we had people near us change their water districts. And I think we stayed in the Rainbow Water District, and because people a little further south of me and towards the coast are paying, it seems like 50-60% more in water.
Wow. Yeah, I know we just
like
got
I mentioned
notice.
earlier, I just can't get adjusted to new prices. I mean,
How's your SDG&E bill?
last month was, I think,
ridiculous.
$10.
Because you have solar?
Yeah.
Welcome to the $400 club.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Yours?
Yep.
What?
Wow.
Pushing, and we haven't done anything different.
Dang.
On that note, we're going to take a break. Back after these messages on Garden America. Well, all right, we made it to the very last segment of today's show here on Garden America. For those that have hung in there from the very beginning, we thank you. Thanking Fertilome, our sponsor here, keeping us on the air. So again, final segment here, not the longest of segments, but still time to squeeze in a few questions, comments, and whatever else is on your mind.
I see our friend Jan in Brentwood in the Bay Area is mentioning that a lot of her roses are still blooming. And she sent me an email this week and told me about a new nursery that she was getting some roses from. I'm not going to mention it on air, but for some reasons that I won't mention on air. But it's really neat because they're roses that up till now haven't been in this country.
Oh, cool.
And it's always cool to get something new.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? My filter is working today.
Yeah? You didn't make a comment,
Nope,
huh?
not at all.
All right.
Do you remember, how long ago was it that we did the little demonstration here about rooting rose cuttings?
In the little...
About a month or so
I
ago?
was going to say
Was
a
it
month
about a month?
because...
Yeah,
Do you
about
remember the one cutting I made right there and said, okay, and then just put it in
Yeah.
there? And, okay, that rose is rooted and now growing outdoors.
Really?
Yeah, and
Yeah, a
just
month
4
ago.
weeks?
In the middle of winter.
Yeah.
This
See,
isn't.
we should have taken a still shot, and then now you take a picture of it
see,
now,
John,
and then you put them side by side in the newsletter.
Can you get your act together,
Wouldn't that be- that
John?
would have been good.
And take a still shot and do a video.
Well, at least a still
How many
shot.
times
A still shot of in
I
the
love how
studio.
you're still telling John to do this when we know that's not in his wheelhouse at all.
But I can provide you the material for you guys to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
But that would have been, good. Here in the studio, here's what I'm doing, and then a month later, here's how it turned out.
Yeah.
Oh well,
Yeah.
that's what your
It would have been
imagination
good.
is for.
It would have been good, John.
Would have been good.
You
yeah.
blew it.
What's going on?
Yeah. Come on.
What's the January's the time of year? Oh, we were talking earlier about one of the big box stores, and I won't pick on them because every big box store is the same.
Yeah.
I went, and we're talking about the San Diego area anyway. You can go in and you can see they are selling plants that have as close to 0% chance of growing as you could imagine.
Yeah.
Like green peppers and squash and basil.
Yeah, their vegetable racks are fully loaded. Like
Right.
they have every vegetable on
Right.
that rack, right?
And it's just no reason to me, and maybe things are changed because I've been out of retail for a long time, but I always felt as a retailer, if you put something on the shelf, you were subconsciously telling your customers, now the time to plant this.
Yeah.
And here they are, either knowingly or unknowingly. If it's unknowingly, shame on them.
Yeah, no, they know.
Because they should know better.
They know. They're working a numbers game there for sure.
But, how many people are not experienced gardeners are going to go in, buy something, take it home, it dies, and then their thought is going to be, I just can't grow that.
Right.
I would say a lot of unexperienced gardeners, I should say, shop at those big box stores.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're in there for something else to begin with, perhaps. Oh, let's go out to the garden center, see what's happening. Oh, look, this is nice. Let's buy one of those.
They might subscribe to the School of Hard Knocks learning, where you try to plant this, you'll learn. Now's not the time to do it.
Diane's got a question. She says, speaking of roses, I trimmed mine back a bit earlier and was waiting until January to cut back, and now they're starting to bloom. I'm in the Reading area. Can I still cut back? They are growing too wide.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Diane, you can go ahead
Sure.
and cut them back now.
And that we've talked about that before. It's always a decision that you kind of just have to make because sometimes they are growing and they all have flowers on them, and you just have to do it.
And sometimes the only way you get them to go dormant is to cut them back.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I've noticed that some of the older garden roses, like moss roses, maybe some of the hybrid perpetuals, are more, I guess, more prone to dormancy. And even though the weather hasn't been cold for roses that have more of a tea background in them, they have more of a European background, and they are losing their leaves right away and just sitting there, not growing. But the tea roses, which came from China in warmer climates, they continue to grow all through the season where the weather's warm. And, I've got full blooms on a lot of them.
Are there evergreen roses? Like they are known to keep their leaves year round, no matter like where they're native. Like you said, China, like their warmer climates. Do they keep their leaves year round there?
Well, there's a species of rose called Rosa sempervirens.
Oh,
And sempervirens is Latin for always green.
always green.
Yeah. So there are roses and Rosa gigantea, the same thing. From warmer climates, they're gonna hold their leaves longer.
Okay.
Interesting. Okay.
So really,
And usually those are going to be larger growing plants
Yeah.
too, since they're adapted to growing year round.
Yeah.
It's I remember in the nursery, people would always come in for hedge plants, and they'd say, "I want something fast growing, to 6 feet."
Oh yeah, of course, and then stop.
Yeah. So get this plant here. It grows overnight to 6 feet and stops.
Yeah. Exactly.
There used to be a product that never caught on called before Miracle Grow. The number one fertilizer was Rapid Grow.
Oh, okay.
And then Miracle Grow took over their place. But they came out with a product around the same time called Slow Grow, which you would spray on a plant and it would slow the growth rate
down?
Yeah.
But I wonder in the long run if that's detrimental to that plant for any reason.
There's bonsai that live for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're slowing their
But
growth
that's
down.
a proven process.
But growers use what do they call them in the industry, John? Where
The growth hormones?
yeah, where they spray the plant and the plant does stop growing because
We
they
gotta
don't want it
go.
to stretch or anything.
I hate to do this. We have to go.
We're not coming
we're
back.
We're just in the middle of what we're talking
We just
about.
got started, basically.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you so much for joining us. We do appreciate it. Those on Biz Talk Radio, Facebook Live. It is time for us to exit, but we hope you enjoyed today's show, learning about grasses with Karen. Have yourself a great rest of your weekend. Let's hope we can get some rain sometime here in California. Otherwise, have yourself a good rest of your weekend, a safe week, and we'll do it again next week right here on Garden America. Thank you, and take care.